Welcome to Nonprofit Stories, inspiring tales from Silicon Valley. We will explore the transformative work of nonprofit organizations and leaders who are changing our community by tackling some of the most pressing issues facing Silicon Valley. So without further ado, let's dive into this exciting conversation. Today, we welcome Amy of the Golden State Opportunity. Their mission is to end poverty by providing all Californians with the tools to build financial well-being and thrive. Thank you to our sponsor, TradeMyHome.com, for their community commitment and for making this podcast possible. Silicon Valley faces severe socio-economic challenges. Median home prices exceed $1.2 million, making homeownership unattainable for many. The cost of living is 50% above the national average, exacerbating financial strains. Additionally, homelessness has surged by over 30%, leaving over 9,000 people without shelter. And now your host of Nonprofit Stories, Dee Kiso.
Welcome to the program today. I'm so glad you joined because you're going to learn about Golden State Opportunity and the amazing work they do for impoverished people right here in our own community and throughout our whole state. So please help me welcome Amy Everitt.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So what inspired you to come to Golden State, and tell us about that journey?
Sure. So I had spent about 17 years running NARAL Pro-Choice California, now Reproductive Freedom for All. And in all the good work we were doing there, one thing always haunted me, and that was watching how the whole system treated low-income women who were trying to get good health care for themselves, for their pregnancy, for their children. And they just kept running into lawmakers and policies that really didn't allow them to have the economic security that they needed. And what I realized when the founder of Golden State Opportunity, Joe Sandberg, approached me about this job, I realized it was an opportunity to help low-income people create their own financial security. And so I always believe that when you have financial security, you could have reproductive freedom. And when you have reproductive freedom, you could have financial security. You need both. And this was just an opportunity to go to the other side of that equation and really start making a difference for women and families and men.
So tell me, how does Golden State Opportunity address poverty in Silicon Valley and the whole state?
Sure. So we have a sort of a signature program around getting people the earned income tax credit. One of the things that Joe Sandberg did was brought an EITC to the state level, the Cali ITC. And this is a program that was created by Nixon at the federal level in the 70s when they noticed they were taxing working people into poverty. So if you do your taxes, you could get a refund depending on the size of your family and how much income you had. And when we brought it to California, what we realized is that the people who were most eligible for this money didn't always have to file taxes because they made too little. So Golden State Opportunity really focuses on reaching these hardly reached communities and engaging them and educating them about the refunds that are sitting there waiting to be claimed by the money they've already earned, and getting them the free tax preparation so they don't have to pay for a preparer, and then they end up with more money in their pockets. Last year, throughout California, Golden State Opportunity helped about 5.5 million low-income workers, people who make under $30,000 a year, claim around $7 billion in state and federal tax credit.
If you don't file and you think you raised or you earn too little, you must file, and you can help them file for free so they can get the income and the revenue due them.
That is exactly right. What's funny is that I have this job because both of my parents were accountants and I was born on tax day. And now all I do is talk about taxes. Not where I thought I would be, but doing your taxes is the key to unlocking hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for families who have already earned it and really need that money to help them meet their basic needs.
What unique challenges does Silicon Valley create in this battle against poverty?
You know, Silicon Valley is fascinating to me because we have such incredible wealth and such incredible poverty. And it's unlike any other place that I've seen in that you could be making $100,000 here, which would put you in a solidly middle-class ground pretty much anywhere else in the country. And here it's still not enough to make ends meet. And the real challenge with that is that you are also making too much money to qualify for any of the programs that the state and the federal governments offer. So Silicon Valley has this really sticky situation. And of course, you couldn't talk about Silicon Valley and poverty without talking about housing. This is one of the most fragile housing places in the world. If you don't make enough to own your home and you are renting, it is the opportunities for you to be displaced are so high. You lose your job, you miss a paycheck, you have a medical emergency, and all of your finances can unravel so fast. So one of the unique challenges of Silicon Valley is, in fact, you have people who are making under $30,000 or under $13,000, and then you have people who are making around $100,000, and they're kind of all in the same bucket because it's still hard to make ends meet here. So that is one of the biggest challenges: is how do we create programs that are going to help people stay housed and stay financially comfortable, while you're also helping people who aren't staying housed and are that highly mobile, really super low income.
Why is community involvement important to GSO's success?
We wouldn't be successful without it at many levels. So I've mentioned our community-based organizations. These are organizations that are, it's like the Bill Wilson Center in Santa Clara County, and others that are in their communities because they know the needs of the people they are serving, and they are trusted messengers. And so at one level, that is the community that we need to be able to reach the folks and get them the resources and the programs they need. We also need a community of activists to help us with the advocacy, to be telling the folks in Sacramento and at the county and city level what needs to be happening in order to make some long-term change, so we're not just keep doing this every year. And then, of course, there's donors who make the work go. Without their support, we can't do the advocacy work. We can't do the texting programs. We have volunteers who come in and, you know, we all get on a Zoom, about 10 or 15 of us, and we text for an hour information to people. And that is a sense of community and family that is also really rewarding. So community is incredibly important. Respecting the communities we're trying to help and mobilizing the communities that are in a position to help.
So let's lean into that. What are the characteristics you need to have an excellent advocate?
You know, passion is the first one, and time is probably the second one. So a willingness to join with us and learn about our programs and learn about our policies, and then be bold enough and have enough time to go and take the time to invite 5 or 10 of your friends to sign the petition to pass the law, to go and meet with your local legislator, or to come and volunteer. We have a program called Tacos and Taxes, where we partner with a legislator, whether it's, you know, Josh Becker or Gina Pappin or others, and we work with them to provide free tacos and free tax prep and a resource fair as well. And so we always need help in these moments from people to come and help us register people and help us, you know, man the resource fair. So there's always opportunities, but I think you really need to be passionate about ending poverty and knowing that we have the tools and the ways for you to actually make a real lasting difference, not only in the lives of individuals, but in the policy scope that is a longer term investment.
How has your advocacy background influenced your approach at GSO?
Well, I'm just so happy that I have been at the intersection of policy and politics for a really long time, because I understand how power works when you're doing policy making. One of the challenges that I have found in the anti-poverty space is that there's very little actual political power. There are a lot of 501c3s who are doing the direct service, the really important work, who don't have the budget or the capacity for the advocacy. You also have other groups that are think tanks and academics, and they're brilliant and they have great ideas and they have all the right data and all the right stories, but they don't have the power to make legislators sit up and listen and take action. And so one of the long-term goals of Golden State Opportunity is to actually create a PAC where we will be running an anti-poverty agenda and asking and working with local elected officials to put them in the pipeline to Congress where we can make that fundamental change that we've been talking about.
What do you think the biggest barrier to getting people out of poverty and keeping them there, if you could name just one thing?
Yeah, the status quo. People have gotten so used to these programs that were created in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, food banks are an incredibly important resource, but they were created in the 1930s during the Depression when we were totally unprepared. It is now almost 100 years later, and we're using the same system to ensure that hardworking people have food on the table. We really need to reimagine how we are doing this work. And we need the folks who are doing the work to realize that there are better ways, even though they're so invested in the system that exists. That system is not set up for success for the people who need it the most. And so we just need to figure out how to move forward and disengage from the status quo and spend some time in imagining what the future is that we want and then going for it.
That's brilliant, Amy. And I can tell you, as so many of my clients, when I come to work with them, they're so used to the status quo. We've done it this way for so long. We don't want to risk changing it this year, even though the outcome could be an instant reverse in
what we all say we're working toward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A typical problem homeowners have when wanting to buy a new home is whether to sell first or buy first. Either way is risky. When ready to look for a new home, TradeMyHome.com, powered by Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, offers an upfront guaranteed cash offer on your current home. Are you moving in the next 3 to 6 months? Text PAIR to 408-740-7400 for a free and no-obligation professional equity appraisal report, exclusively for Nonprofit Stories podcast viewers. For more information, visit TradeMyHome.com or call 408-740-7400. Remember, at TradeMyHome.com, your home is sold guaranteed or we'll buy it.
So what has been your most impactful work with GSO so far?
Wow. I think it was during COVID when I had been in this job maybe 4 months when COVID hit. And our entire program was focused on being in person, doing these tacos and taxes, doing in-person events. And obviously when the world shut down, we had to pivot and pivot fast. And we created a program called $1 Million for $1 Billion. And that was when we said, we're going to reach 1 million low-income Californians to put $1 billion back in their pocket. And that year, we reached, for the first time, like 5 million people. And that's when we realized we were putting $7 billion back in their pocket. And we moved so fast and so quickly, learned a lot of lessons that are still with us today about how to do this remote. But it was a super powerful moment. And if I could say two, the other is just this tax year. We did about 21 tacos and taxes programs, which put directly just in those 21 events, $1 million back in people's pockets. And we were able to reach them in a way that brought them into all the other wraparound services that were available to them. So they didn't just come in and get their taxes done for free and get a taco. They also got information about registering to vote. And they got information about all the other programs that exist to support them, the public benefits, the CalAIM, all the programs the Treasurer does. And we also were able to turn them into actual advocates. They wrote thank you notes to their legislators for the programs that were being funded through the state so that we can, so that we can also enhance our advocacy power with their constituents, writing them thank you notes for the programs that they make available.
Now that's instant impact.
Yep.
So how does GSO collaborate with high-tech companies in the Silicon Valley area and about?
We are always looking to be on that innovation edge. And so we pay a lot of attention. We have a partnership with Intuit that helps create this calculator that people can come to our website, caliitcforme.org, and they can calculate what kind of refund they could get back. And usually that's a compelling enough number for them to go find their free tax prep site or find out more information. We're really starting to look at partnerships with fintech companies for what kind of things we can do to help low-income people get banked, because the first step to financial security is having a bank account. Once you have that bank account, you can get your refunds by direct deposit, so you don't lose your check. It doesn't get stolen. It doesn't wander around the post office looking for you because you moved again. And also when you have a bank account, you can start to build credit. You can get loans. It's just that first step. So we're really looking to partner with banks, especially fintech banks, because again, this is a constituency that uses their phone for most things. So we're really trying to figure out how to meet people where they are, and technology is a big part of that.
Well, in our technological world, we've changed and the nonprofits haven't.
Right. So one of the other areas that we use technology is when I started, we worked with these community-based organizations, and we realized most of them are still working in Excel, and some are still literally pen and paper and filing. And so we started a database that we make available to these organizations free of charge. They own their data, but now they can input it, and it makes things like reaching people in emergencies easier. It allows them to understand where people are. We can start seeing who's using what services, and it makes it easier for the advocacy to reach people, to canvas, to let them know what's going on. So we are also providing data, a database to these organizations to make them more effective and make them more efficient.
What role does technology play at GSO to end poverty?
It needs to play a bigger role. As I mentioned, we have this database of people file that we are using to help create the effectiveness and the efficiency of our community-based organization and of ourselves. We're launching a volunteer program where we have a portal for volunteers to come in and work from and track what they're doing. So we have leaderboards. But the biggest one is data, is understanding who are we reaching, how are we reaching them, and what is our impact when we do. And that is actually something we are still figuring out. So if anybody's listening and they want to, work with us on figuring out the data piece, we need that help.
Why is it crucial to integrate policy and advocacy into poverty alleviation?
So as I mentioned, poverty today is a policy outcome. We have designed our policies in a way that perpetuate poverty. If we don't change who the policymakers are and what the policies are, we're just going to keep doing this. And we have been for 50 years. We've been using the same programs and expecting different outcomes. And what we really need is some fundamental change. So we build that into everything that we do. Even with our community-based organizations who are doing that hard in the trenches direct service, we're training them to be their own advocates. We bring them to Sacramento. We are demystifying the budget process and the policy-making process, because those are the voices that we really need making policy and informing policy. For us, when we talk with folks at the community leadership there who know this community and they know what they need, it inspires us to write better policy.
How do you foresee GSO evolving in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, we are growing. When I started, we were a $4 million organization. We're now an $8 million organization. We do have plans to become a national organization. And what that means is we have a federal policymaking process, but we have created in California a power base with our community-based organizations and the people we serve. And we now need to repeat that in very targeted districts around the country. so that we can start influencing federal policymaking. The fact that the child tax credit has not been renewed or expanded since we proved that it lifts children up and out of poverty is sort of a crime. And we need to bring a lot more to bear to make that happen. So I see us expanding nationally, adding a 501c4 and a political action committee so that we are building political power to create the change that we know we need.
So how has your international experience helped you have this thinking and what you do with GSO?
Yeah, so I spent about 10 years working on international trade and development in Southeast Asia. And when I was there, I could see the difference that one microloan made to a family and to a community and to the entire region. And that has really informed how I know that if we give individuals and families the money they need to make their own decisions about how to spend it, they're going to spend it wisely and they're going to work themselves out of poverty. They don't need all the strings attached. That's what I saw internationally with a lot of the most forward-thinking programs, and we want to bring those here to California and to the United States.
Why do you think there are so many strings attached to the giving hand?
I'm going to answer that in a roundabout way. When I worked in reproductive freedom, I ran into a lot of judgment. People knew who was getting abortions and why, and they were wrong. When I moved over to the anti-poverty space, I didn't think I would run into judgment, and I ran into a brick wall of judgment. And that judgment has informed our policymaking. So there are myths about who's poor. They are lazy. They don't want to work. They're such victims that they can't help themselves, so we have to help them. I've never met those people. I meet people who are in the trenches, working hard, 2 and 3 jobs, managing their family, and trying to make ends meet. And so the policymaking is entrenched in those mythologies that people, we can't trust them with money. We have to tell them what to do. Otherwise, they won't make the right decision. But the reality and the beauty of all of the basic income pilot projects that are happening is that we're blowing up those mythologies. When people have access to more money, they are less poor, they make good decisions, and they are moving themselves up and out of poverty without a host of programs supporting them. I'm in favor of all of those programs because people need them. But let's go to what works and empower folks to make the best decisions for themselves and their families, because they will.
Several years ago, I worked in the poverty industry, working in a nonprofit, and the numbers then was $60,000 a year to keep a person homeless. Living on the street costs, all these different programs for services that are...
That number is now $300,000.
That number is $300,000 a year to have a homeless person on our streets.
Yeah, and it would take about $400, $500 a month to keep them housed. And when they're housed, they have a place to go. Their family has a place to go. They can find a job. That security of having a home of one's own. My son is reading Virginia Woolf, which I'm quite excited about. But having a home of one's own is an economic security bastion. And it doesn't mean they have to own it, but having a place to go alleviates all that stress, all that worry. Because once you lose your house, it can all cascade so fast, especially here in Silicon Valley. 1 minute you're housed, 1 minute you're couch surfing, 1 minute you're living in your car, 1 minute you're on the street.
You lose your purpose.
Yeah.
You lose your belonging. Next falling is your well-being and the months it can take to get back if you're fortunate enough to find a program, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we can't keep doing what we've been doing. It's not working. And we see the evidence everywhere.
It's not working.
It's not working. We can do better.
So in wrapping up, how can our viewers and individuals get involved in helping GSO move forward with their initiatives?
The first thing I would say is join us. We're building a movement. Join us, sign up for the email or the text. We don't over-email you. And then you'll find out ways to get involved. We have legislation at the state and the federal level that we need more support to pass. Sign the petition that we send. If you want, come and volunteer with us. We have a lot of opportunities to do really meaningful work. And it can be as easy as doing a text bank, and it can be as involved as becoming a volunteer income tax preparer. And then you can sit across from folks and help them claim their credits. We have a whole system, but until we all are working towards that goal, it's going to be hard. And the other thing I would say, I'm sure your viewers know a lot of policymakers, elected officials. Ask them, what are you doing to end poverty, and is it effective? Because people need to be put on notice, the policymakers need to be put on notice that this is an issue that needs to be addressed. It's not just housing. It is a whole suite of programs that put people in the unhoused situation. So ask your elected officials and hold them accountable for what they're doing and what they're not doing.
Thank you for that. So in wrapping up, I'm really shocked that it's $300,000 a year to maintain poverty, homelessness in our streets, and we can all do better. So if you're interested in this and it moves you, please reach out to GSO, get on the mailing list, be an advocate, get involved, volunteer, and we can do better with your help. Thanks for joining us today.
Here's a sneak peek of the next episode of Nonprofit Stories, featuring Dana Trujillo, CEO of the Crisis Text Line.
So we are a free 24/7 emotional support and mental health text line. So people, and think of it as a mental health emergency room.
They aim to ensure everyone can access quality mental health support wherever and whenever needed.
To 741-741 at any point in time in English and Spanish, and you will be connected to a trained, empathetic individual to meet you in that moment. Whatever is a crisis to you is a crisis to us.
Check out our next full episode on Wednesday at 5 o'clock Pacific and 8 o'clock Eastern on YouTube and Apple Podcast. Thank you for listening to the podcast and acknowledging the impactful work of nonprofits in Silicon Valley. Please subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Thank you to our sponsor, TradeMyHome.com, for their community commitment and for making this podcast possible. Until next time, remember to support local nonprofits.